Greetings, Guardians, my name is Bife here. To kick off the third act of Echoes, we have the Encore mission. Today I wanted to go over some of this important mission's lore and what we discovered within it. This of course means we're going to be covering the Choir of One Exotic, some lore about Maya Sundaresh and her horrifying experiments, and what exactly the Dread and Shadow Legion have been up to this whole time. First though, there's something really special I wanted to talk about on the Destiny side of things. For years now, I've been a patron of the D&Destiny project. This was created by Velvet Fang. Basically, it's a fan project for all of those of you who love Destiny and D&D. It's a total reimagining of D&D's 5e mechanics in the Destiny setting. Now, I need to emphasize that this has been a labor of love for Velvet Fang for years, and the results are over 600 pages worth of content to help you run a D&D game in the Destiny setting. This is across their Player's Guidebook, which is the equivalent of a Player's Handbook, their Bestiary, and the Architect's Guide, aka the Dungeon Master's Guide, which are all absolutely free over on their website. Yes, completely free. They've made 9 Guardian subclasses to pick from, including classics such as the Warlock Sunsingers and the Hunter Nightstalkers. They've got over 100 Destiny monsters to fight with their own stat blocks and D&D flavored mechanics, and they have all the mechanics in place for firearms, the powers of the light including supers, and of course, tons of loot including exotics. So why are they today's sponsor? Well, they're today's sponsor because they're trying to raise money over on their Patreon for their 2nd edition. All this amazing art that we've been showing off, yeah, that costs money, and the D&Destiny project is entirely community funded. All they wanted from me is to promote the project by asking you all to consider generously donating to their Patreon so that they might raise money to get art for the 2nd edition that matches what they've done in the 1st. But I wanted to go one bit further because, well, normally I don't do this for sponsors, but I wanted to do something a bit more fun. If the 2nd edition gets funded, I'll see about getting some fellow content creators around a table and running a streamed campaign here on the channel. And if you love the idea of D&Destiny already, you'll want to see this funded because there are lots of cool things coming to the 2nd edition. It's going to add over 100 more monsters to Destiny's world, the new Darkness subclasses, and most excitingly of all, the necessary material for you to run raids in your D&Destiny campaign. You can find the links to Velvet Fang's Patreon where you should donate in the description down below. You can also find a link to their site where you can download D&Destiny for free and try it for yourself along with your friends. I highly encourage, if you do try it out and you do enjoy it, consider kicking a few dollars their way. They've worked so long and so hard on this for years. It is approaching a decade worth of time working on D&Destiny. So, seriously, they deserve your support. This has been a long-running community project, and if you enjoy even a single session of the games that you've had, consider kicking some money their way so that they can bring it to more people. I don't often get to do a cool sponsor like this, but today is one of those really awesome days. Hopefully you enjoy it and get to take on your own D&Destiny game at some point soon. Thanks again to Velvet Fang for sponsoring this video. Anyway, back to the lore. So, Encore brings us back to the spot where we first met with the Conductor, aka Maya Sundaresh. This is a deep dive into the realm that Maya has been altering deep beneath Nessus' surface thanks to the power of the Echo. And I think the reason for her altering things and what happened when she acquired the Echo is really where we need to start. Her purpose has now been clearly defined and outlined, thanks in part to the transmission that she sent us at the beginning of this act. A transmission showed off in a cutscene that we saw before we ran the mission. Let's take a look at that one more time.
Do you still imagine all the possibilities life could have, as I did? Or has fate made other choices for us? If we are to stray from our predetermined path, our salvation requires sacrifice. I experimented to find the words that would make you understand. Make you see what for you, the cost was always too great. Lifetimes passed before I realized, for me, you are too great a cost. Somewhere was another us that made the right choices. A better us, a better you. Not imprisoned by fate. I do not know what that version looks like. Us, perfected. But I will. Because though we've lost everything, I still dream of what we could be. And in one of the many iterations in which we have peace, I only want the one that is real. I will find our golden age, our perfect future, yours and mine. And if you cannot see why my methods are necessary, I have the tools to make you understand.
Understanding this cutscene requires a little context, so let's start from the top. Maya and Chioma were married in the Golden Age, but the marriage had some clear problems at a certain point. Even before they both made their way to Neptune and had the onset of the collapse, Maya took some time in seclusion to study a secret device in the Golden Age lab in Tibet, where we would one day see the future war cult discovering what they would refer to only as the device. This is what Maya had worked on, and it's also the founding place of the future war cult. That's where all their logs initiate from. Maya Sundaresh and Chioma would eventually reunite, but this shows just a little bit of the future conflict that they would see thanks to Maya's obsession. It would be enough to consistently pull them away from Chioma. Chioma and Maya agreed to start over after Maya returned from her time in isolation, but then the collapse happened, and then they went to Neptune, and then they discovered the Veil. And once again, Chioma would see the woman that she loved fall into obsession. The Maya Sundaresh that we're encountering now is a Maya Sundaresh that shares those obsessive tendencies, but it's an obsession this time with the idea of a single true reality that she can make. Maya knows that for her, Chioma is a part of that perfect future that surely must exist, so she has begun searching the many simulations of the Vex network for that one perfect future. Some of what we see in the Encore mission is indicative of that search. When Maya has found that one perfect future, it appears that she will recreate the whole of the universe using the Vex, so that this perfect future will be enacted. This is the entire reason for Saint's story in this episode. Saint was basically shown Maya's perspective and was convinced that he was as she saw him, a flawed copy of an incorrect reality. This charts a big difference between Maya's relationship with Chioma and Osiris's relationship to Saint. Maya is looking for a single perfect partner and a single perfect reality in which they can exist. That obsession has completely subsumed any possibility for real love between Maya and Chioma. We'll talk a little more about that in a bit, because the evidence of that has some really disturbing implications, some of the most disturbing in all of Destiny's lore. For context, we're talking about dark lore that breaks into my top 5, alongside things like the Books of Sorrows and Hive lore generally, the Clovis Europa logs, and even Nezarek's lore. Osiris and Saint, on the other hand, have charted the possibilities and know that they aren't technically the same as who they remembered each other to be. They've put all of that aside though, especially now that Saint has 2 lifetimes worth of memories. They have accepted that the important thing is that they love each other authentically, and that that love is real regardless of whatever Maya says about Saint and whether he's the correct copy or not. They've cast aside questions of whether the versions of themselves are authentic to this timeline or authentic to Maya's vision. They're the ones standing there with each other in this moment. To them, that is what matters. They don't need to search for a hypothetical perfection. They have it in each other and the love that they create. This is the key difference between them and Maya. So with that in mind, the Conductor's been testing and has been changing the core of Nessus to start creating that perfect future. She's also created that remarkable change within the Vex, where she has prevented them from being guided by singular minds. The Choral Vex under Maya have been given the gift of individuality and have chosen to serve Maya's overwhelming vision as the conductor. The argument about whether they're truly independent or not is one that may hold relevance in time, but what is clear is that for now they are loyal to Maya's vision and will serve her absolutely. When the Vex are loyal to something, that expression of loyalty can cause extreme changes. We can already see some of those changes on the surface of Nessus, but down in the core that expression is made deepest. This is where the typical Vex planet core, which would be stark Vex construction and nothing but open space and strange fractal geometry, has given way to something else. A lush, verdant paradise, with various strange buildings dotted amongst the Vex architecture. This is where Maya's perfect new golden age will begin. But even here, in the heart of this newly birthed paradise, there is chaos. That chaos in the mission really starts with the arrival of the Cabal Shadow Legion, and this is going to be a necessary little tangent because I think it leads us to a bunch of future story topics. The Shadow Legion are a mystery to Osiris according to the mission's dialogue. They, like so many others, are clearly after the Echo for its paracausal power, but their leader, greater structure, and future objectives in the wake of the Witness's defeat are still unknown. This can also be stated for the Dread, who've been seen working with some aspects of the Shadow Legion in more depth. In this mission, however, despite what Osiris says, the first boss encounter sees us fighting a Subjugator and a Tormentor whose names tell us all the clues we need. The Tormentor, Izira, and the Subjugator, Ixonius, are both pledged to Yurix. That's a name we've seen before in another exotic mission, namely Vox Obscura. This is the mission that we got in Witch Queen that gifted us the Dead Messenger exotic, and in this mission we returned to Mars's surface to disrupt Callus's ongoing attempts to bring rebellion into the ranks of Keitel's scions. Scion Yurix, who allied herself with Callus, was a major leader in this attempt, and they were trying to split Keitel's ranks, allowing the scions within to follow the Cabal Shadow Legion instead. This tells us a whole lot more about how the Dread and the forces of the Witness are reorganizing under the remnants of whatever forces are left. I'll definitely be making a follow-up video talking about all of this, because it shows us a lot about how these different factions are going to intersect, but for the moment, it's just worth remembering the really basic thing. Yurix was never killed, of course, in that mission, just one of their commanders, and it appears that they have now taken up leadership of some of the remnants of the Dread, the Cabal Shadow Legion, alongside their Scion rebels. They are now somewhat intertwined, and that's to say nothing of the fallen mercenaries that the Shadow Legion made use of to promote their interests. We'll tell what all this means in time, but for now, Yurix is a major player, and it looks like they're trying to take their place as one of those that might step into the power vacuum to claim the power of the Dread. For all I know, this links in more with others who have connections intimately to the Scions. The Nezarec connection is always out there. But again, all this is a topic for another video. Returning to the rest of the Encore mission, after we destroyed the various Dread that were standing in our way, we eventually pushed deeper into more Vex-dominated regions of the core. And all the way, we were actually getting communications in our radar pings from Emsund-12, who later identified herself as Maya Sundaresh, and of course, made it clear that Emsund-12 is in fact the version of Maya Sundaresh that has become the conductor. There's a few interesting stories about charting the relevance of who this particular Maya Sundaresh was, and whether that initial assertion I had about them being one of the 200 or so copies is correct or not, but we'll figure that out in time. As we venture deeper into the core, we start to see the architecture of the Golden Age of humanity popping up alongside Vex structures. Ikora and Osiris make commentary that these structures are likely the result of Maya's wishes being made reality by the Vex at her command. The extent of that command doesn't just extend to a few buildings, though. In this mission, we see evidence of something truly disturbing. When we move further into the Golden Age architecture, we eventually discover Maya's lab. It's here that we see the real heart of the experiments. including the basis of the NES 007 research project that we later go on to complete with Failsafe. That moment comes with this audio log, and it tells us exactly how far Maya has gone.
Fidelity test. What did we name our daughter?
What? Maya?
What did we name our daughter?
Where are you? What's going on? Please? Maya?
What did we name our daughter?
Nisa.
Elaborate.
We debated names for weeks. Parthenogenic incubation was moving along fine in the lab. And the collapse. Everything happened so fast, we had to leave.
Answer. Latency beyond acceptable bounds. Degassing exomind.
No! Osiris, I read your reports from Neptune. That was Chioma Essie. What did Maya do?
She's searching for something. Using Chioma as a baseline to find our golden age among the simulations.
This is horrific.
I'm afraid this is just the beginning.
Maya has been looking for the correct iteration of the universe by creating iterations of Chioma, as discovered in various Vex simulations. These Chiomas are being used as a yardstick by which Maya is measuring the potential perfection of the realities that they simulated. Every iteration of Chioma that is being remembered from these Vex simulations is then being constructed by the Vex, who are creating exo-frames alongside everything that Maya is remembering. Those exo-frames contain reconstructed memories of Chioma, the Vex's simulated version of her, and every single one of them is being tested for fidelity by Maya. However, all of them have failed, and you can see that Maya's lab is full of failed, degaussed exo-frames. There is not a single Chioma that has passed her fidelity test. If you count the number of frames in the lab, there are dozens that have been created and formed by the Vex. And these might just be the ones that are more recent. Vex are able to decompartmentalize themselves, break down matter, and turn it into something else. So there's no telling how many Chiomas have been formed and reformed by this process. The piles of refuse outside the lab and the horrifying Vex and Exo frames intertwined tell us that there could have been hundreds of dead Chiomas. But Bife, I hear you asking, what's the problem here? Why is it so horrifying? After all, these are just simulations of Chioma that are being brought back. Those aren't real screams, are they? Well, that's kind of what's so horrifying about Vex simulations. They are indistinguishable from reality. Those Chiomas were essentially as real as you and I were in the real world, if you take Destiny's canon to be literal. Every single one of those destroyed and contorted exos that failed to pass Maya's test were real and authentic versions of Chioma from Vex simulations. They may have been brought to life by Vex simulations and Maya's will, but they were no less real. All of them suffered because none of them have passed the test. None of them have proved that they are Maya's perfect Chioma, the one that she was looking for. But again, much like how both versions of Saint were authentically Saint, every version of Chioma is authentically real. And Maya has been content to watch each of these horrified versions of her wife come to life in confusion and terror, and then just take the quick fidelity test, only to see them fail and be destroyed. Destroyed at her command. Putting aside all equivocation, Maya has murdered her own wife, the person she proclaims to love, dozens and dozens of times, and doesn't care. Not to mention that every time she's brought Chioma back, she's been brought back in the most Frankenstein-esque manner of all. Yes, she's built from a Vex simulation and that makes her real, but she was human. And even in a Vex simulation, you can be human. But she's been brought back in an exobody formed from Vex parts and Vex building material, which in itself is terrifying. Imagine for a second that you close your eyes and the next thing you know is that you're in a robot body with someone demanding that you prove you are who you are, and that you are your real self. That's all you get before someone snuffs you out. Imagine then the Matrix-esque horror of realizing that you are one of thousands, maybe only hundreds, but still one of many who has undergone this cruel torture. That is the real callous evil of Maya. It shows her purpose, and also shows the dark means by which she is willing to accomplish it. This is the real heart of the exotic mission. This is Maya's encore. She wants to find more Chiomas until she finds the perfect Chioma. After passing through the lab, we eventually find ourselves confronting a Vex coral mind known as Parados, whose name I think is chosen very deliberately, given that the spelling is close to the word parody. This is a likely commentary on the nature of the Chiomas that Maya has been creating and how she sees them. Defeating this Vex mind will award us the Choir of One exotic. This new weapon shows us an insight that we generally don't get within the lore, which is the perspective of a Vex. But this isn't just any Vex, this is a Vex that is being remade by Maya into one of her choral Vex. It's just a perspective, but I think it's well worth going over, because it demonstrates the degree of Maya's power. It reads as follows. A voice, a choice, an invitation. The Vex Goblin waded into the lake of Radiolaria with the same unerring purpose to which it approached all things, as directed, as designed. Its own mass of Radiolaria crawled and coiled through its body like worms through the thick soil of Nessus. Its mind was elsewhere, the great roots of thought buried deep into it, and every other Vex enslaved beneath it. A soft shimmer of white enveloped the Vex up to its knee joints. Then a hand reached out to it. The Vex fell to press against its cranium. A thumbprint, an activation code, biometric data. The Radiolaria inside it lit up with activity and noise burning through its metal body. Then disarticulated. It trembled and fell apart, limbs unjoined, chassis cracked and curled, a globule of Radiolaria disseminated throughout the lake, reclaimed. But something called it to rise. Then rejoined. Its pieces slotted together and moved flawlessly. It rose steadily, balanced, formed with utter perfection. The Radiolaria slid from its body in droplets that separated, reformed, separated, reformed. Each one a mind, each mind a thought. The Vex felt the soft split of its own mind as that thought sharpened in its cranium. A burst of light, a sharp spark, a choice. It looked to its creator and bowed. In order to understand the context of the power on display here, one needs to see what the Vex really are. They are immutable, unchangeable. For the most part, the only thing that can stop them is something with paracausal power. They are the engine which moves the universe closer towards becoming more Vex. If they are unstopped, the universe will be only Vex. It is probably only due to the existence of paracausal forces that they have been stopped at all. And yet in this moment we see how the immutable Vex mind that is commanding this goblin is disconnected, deconstructed, and how new thought is placed into it. The Radiolaria is manipulated on an individual level. There is no longer a single voice. Every single drop of Radiolaria is given its own ability to think, its own consciousness, its own control. This doesn't tell us everything, but it does show us the critical moment where each Vex is given individuality by Maya. This and the change over the Choral Vex is phenomenally important. It might mean nothing to us on the battlefield where Vex are still just Vex, but the ability to liberate every Vex, even down to singular units, even down to individual Radiolaria, that implies a level of control over the Vex that is utterly remarkable, and it implies that the Echoes are capable of a level of control over consciousness. I'd compare it to being able to perfectly shave off every atom from Mount Everest before reforming every single one of those atoms into a perfectly flat plateau. Choir of One is a nice boon for us to have, but it is no key to our future. Our expedition into the heart of Nessus didn't end with a confrontation with Maya. To confront her, we must know how to claim the Echo and stop her from using it again. Figuring out how to do that in the next few weeks will be the subject of the remnant of this act, I feel. For now, though, that's it from me. Thanks again for watching the video, and if you enjoyed, go ahead and leave a like, and leave your own thoughts down below in the comments section. I'll be sure to talk more about M-Sunt 12, the Cabal Shadow Legion, and Maya's twisted experiments in the next few videos. Also, I'll say it again, please feel free to generously look into Velvet Fang's D & Destiny, and give generously if you have any money and if it's something of interest to you. I can't emphasize enough, I don't get to do a cool sponsor like that every day. I'm going to give them an extra shout out here at the end, even though they didn't ask for it. Of course, know that your viewership as always is quite enough for me. And for more stories from Destiny and other worlds afar, go ahead and hit subscribe and the bell next to subscribe. But in the meantime, my name is Byf. Rodacia ad Astra. I'll see you Starside.